Wow. So the show has been silent this whole time. Anyway, just to recap, I got the first question right and the second question wrong, and I had really good examples for both. But then I looked and saw that the show had been silent for the first 12 minutes. So I guess I'll have to either voice over that or I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, show was silent for 12 minutes. All right. Madam C.J. Walker was the first self made woman millionaire in the U.S. How did she make her fortune? Um, I mean, you would think real estate, right? Because you don't need to start a factory as you would for cosmetics or textiles. Maybe you could do small batches of cosmetics and textiles, but I'm going to say real estate because it's a millionaire. Sarah Breedlove to parents. Born Sarah Breedlove to parents who had been enslaved, Madam Walker developed hair and beauty products for African American women. Actually, that makes a lot more sense. Um, Real estate, there could be prejudices to go against. Um, just because we're saying a millionaire, and back then a million was a lot of money. So maybe a woman in real estate, you can only do so many deals at a time, and maybe she doesn't get the biggest deals. The textiles, you generally need a company. The cosmetics, I was already thinking that a small batch could work, but now you're talking about a small batch product to an underserved market, and maybe you even teach other people how to do it and get a percentage. I mean, suddenly it looks like the obvious answer. Anyway, I'm sorry that the first 20 minutes of the show were silent, so I don't know what's going to happen about that. I'm actually going to go right now and remove it from the podcast playlist because you can't have a podcast with no voice. And in fact, tomorrow I'm going to have to go in or whenever, or the next day, whenever it becomes available, and I'm going to have to remove the beginning section of this episode. I mean, it's silent. What's the point? All right, the first national park opened in 1872. It was Yellowstone, Yosemite, or Crater Lake. I'll just say Yellowstone. No, I'm going to say Yosemite. Yellowstone National Park, established in Congress 1872, is the world's first national park. Among its many wonders are geysers, hot springs, herds of bison. I was like spouting out some gold during those first 12 minutes. I feel like I can't recreate it all, but anyway. I was talking about World's Fairs, I was talking about the first flights, and I was going into all this like information and the moon landing. I can't recreate. I could probably, but it'll be artificial. It was better when it happened natural. So I guess keep listening and I'll get to those topics again some other time. How old was the first person to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel? I'm going to say 63, and my reason is that the first person to go over it didn't know if they would survive. And a 63-year-old person, especially if they didn't have any, especially if they had some sort of illness or they had a financial situation and they didn't have any dependents, they would probably think like, well, if I go over the barrel, I win the bet, and I've got a story to tell for life. And if I don't survive, you know, it doesn't matter. All right, so the answer was the 28-year-old. Answer C. Annie Edson Taylor jumped into a custom-made barrel for her trip over the falls on October 24th, 1901 to her 63rd. What? C? But C said 28. What? What's going on here? Her 63rd birthday, she declared she would sooner walk up the mouth of a canyon than repeat her adventure. Well, I'm confused because it says answer C. Answer C is 28. But then the rationale says Annie Edson Taylor jumped into a custom-made barrel for her trip over the falls on October 24th, 1901, her 63rd birthday. Yeah, so how many cards have we done? Like 5 cards, and 2 of them have errors? I mean, come on. You gotta have, like, less errors than that. Like, how can two out of the first 5 cards have errors? I think the first error came out when the voice wasn't on yet, so that's another thing you guys missed. But anyway, true or false? The first woman who was elected to U.S. Congress was also the first woman to get to vote for herself. Yes, that's true. I think she was from Montana. Jeanette Rankin of Montana was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1916. The 19th Amendment granting voting rights to women was not ratified until 1920. That's weird. I know that some, like nowadays, people talk about the patriarchy, and other people like, come on, give it a break. Like 60% of college students are women, but there was a time when women weren't allowed to vote. Like there was a time when you had to own property to vote, and I think I understand that. But there was a time when you had to be a male to vote, and that I don't understand. If you're going to say you get 1 vote per household, and most of the times the male voted was because he was the property owner, that I could understand. But like, you had to create a law before women were allowed to vote. Like, did the previous law say voters must be male? I don't know. It's weird. I should look into that. I mean, that's genuinely weird. The way we think of voting today, that's genuinely weird. I'm sure there were some circumstances of the time that made more sense, but at the same time, I'm sure it was still wrong. Who was the first British monarch to live in Buckingham Palace? So, B, that's the queen that just died. King George III, isn't that the current person? Like, when's this deck created? Like, he was already king when this deck was created? Because he only was coronated like a couple of weeks ago. And I've had this deck for a couple of months. I just opened it today, but I've had it. All right, so I guess it's Queen Victoria if we don't think it's any of the current residents. Yeah, it is Queen Victoria. Victoria made the palace her primary residence and headquarters of the monarchy on her accession to the throne in 1837. The palace's 775 rooms provided plenty of space for her family of 9 children. Wow. All right, next up. What country was the first to have a female prime minister? Wasn't Gandhi's wife prime minister? Surely that's earlier than New Zealand, but I guess I don't know about Britain and Sri Lanka. Like, I don't really know anything about Sri Lanka, so that's probably the answer. A. Sirimavo Bandaranaike, I don't know, 1916 to 2000, served 3 terms as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. Why is there a capital A at the end of Sri Lanka? She was the first female head of government to be elected to the world. I mean, we're up to what, about the 10th or 12th card? And we now have a third card with an error. Yeah, it's a lowercase a here. It's a capital A here. If we found 3 typos in the first dozen cards, nobody proofread this. I mean, come on. How do you print it without proofreading it? Or am I just seeing this because I got a review copy and they give me the crappy copy? I don't know. God bless you. Someone sneezed in my house. Johannes Gutenberg printed the first Bible in English in 1455. True or false? Well, we know that he did. What we don't know is the year. Gutenberg Bible is 1455. It sounds a little bit early, doesn't it? Why am I thinking it's more like 1555? Anyway, let's just call it true. Gutenberg printed the first book with movable type in the West. It is known as the 42-line Bible, and it's in Latin. William Caxton printed the first English language books. Okay, so the Gutenberg Bible wasn't in English. All right. What are we doing? Like 50%? And these cars are basically doing terrible. Sir Barton accomplished a famous first in horse racing, mountain climbing, acting. I guess mountain climbing, I don't know. Sir Barton was the first horse to win the Triple Crown, the 3 races for the top 3-year-old thoroughbreds, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. Well, I'm doing terrible, and we're going to stop soon. Basically, the only reason I'm still going is because the first 12 minutes were without audio, and I feel like I need to keep going. Henry Ford invented the first windshield, true or false? Was the Model T Ford the first car with a windshield? I'm going to say true. False. Mary Anderson of Birmingham, Alabama, designed and obtained a patent for a windshield cleaning device in 1903, but car windshield wipers did not become standard equipment until 1913. Did the front of the card mention wipers? Henry Ford invented the first windshield. So why are they talking about wipers? That wasn't even mentioned on the front of the card. Mary Anderson of Birmingham, Alabama, designed and obtained a patent for a windshield cleaning device in 1903. But the car windshield wipers did not become standard until 1913. I wonder if this is missing a word. Who invented the first windshield wiper? I don't know. I mean, there have been so many errors that I wouldn't put it past them, but I don't know. I mean, they mentioned windshield on the front, and they're talking about wipers on the back, so I just don't know at this point whether it's a mistake or they just went on a tangent. Shakespeare wrote the first knock-knock joke. In which play does it appear? A, of course he didn't. B, Macbeth. C, Hamlet. I think it's entirely possible that he included a knock-knock joke. A is like, of course he didn't, which, of course, they're kind of leading you to that answer. Macbeth and Hamlet. I don't really know what either of them are about. Excuse me. So, I don't have a guess here, which means I should pick A, but I'm going to go with B. In Macbeth, Act 2, Scene 3, the drunken porter at Macbeth's castle responds to a knocking at the gate. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? I, the name of Beelzebub. Wow, that's horrible. That was a knock, knock joke in Shakespearean times. Kind of wish I hadn't read it. What famous American first lived by rules of conduct he wrote in his high school book, including Spit Not in the Fire? So, some American guy wrote rules in his notebook and then lived by them. Who's that guy with the white coat? He wrote books. Samuel Clemens or something like that? All right, let's see. No, George Washington. First president of the United States, modeled his conduct on 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation. Other good advices include: put not off your clothes in the presence of others. Yeah, I guess that's pretty good advice. Don't take off your clothes in public. What was the first state admitted to the Union after the original 13? I guess Kentucky, right? If the other two were already there. Oh, Vermont. Vermont was the 14th state to join the Union in 1791, followed by Kentucky in 1792. Maine did not become a state until 1820, so none of them were the first 13 colonies. What were they like? New York, Virginia? Was Connecticut part of it? Beatles released their first song, Love Me Do, in 1962. I'm going to go with true. I think I'm getting about a 10% on this test. True. Love Me Do was the band's debut single. It reached number 17 in the UK charts, but was number one hit when released in the US. All right, so that's halfway. So I think we might even be closing in on 10%, which is like, I think the most we would want to do before we got in legal trouble. So this is how many cards we did. I have to like rearrange them, put them back in order. But here's the point I'm getting at. We need to wrap it up because you can only use like so much of the content. Otherwise it becomes like copyright. So sorry that the first 10 minutes were no audio. I'll have to fix that when I get a chance. Sorry. But anyway, good night for tonight, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.